an agenda. The attendance sheet is floating around as well as the agenda. Please make sure you're listed on there. Before we start the meeting, I'd like to just open with happy holidays, happy healthy new year to you. Thank you all for the past 2 years of service to the REMAC. What we're going to do is we'll start, as always, with the Pledge of Allegiance and a brief moment of silence in recognition of those members from our committees and the service providers in Nassau County and our armed services that have given everything that we've asked of them and more in to save other people and for our country. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Please stand for a moment of silence. Okay, thank you very much. Going down the agenda, I have a bunch of excuses. And then we're gonna do a roll call, just so we can make sure we have a quorum. So let's see. So excuses for today's meeting include Dr. Kirshen, Vin Papsadero, Dr. Shearson, Don Hudson, Dr. Harris, Paramedic Rummel, Dr. Rowe, Dr. Gujral, Dana Cordopasso, Dr. Ring, who resigned by phone just prior to the meeting, Dr. Pardo, who resigned by text message. So going down, I'm just going to call out your name if you're here, just say it here. Just doing the voting members, Dr. Barrios, excuse me. Dr. Boutin.
He's on his way, apparently.
Okay, when he just let me know when he gets here. Dr. Bramante. Okay, thank you. Dr. Shearson is excused. Dr. Dishner is excused. Dr. Gujral is excused. Dr. Harris is excused. There's a trauma conference going on, so a lot of people went there. Dr. Hassett. Dr. Kirshen. Did he ask for excuse? Yes, he was excused. I'm here. Josh is here. Dr. Newberg is here. Dr. Ring resigned. Dr. Carter resigned. Dr. Politi. No, thank you. Dr. Rowe is excused. Dr. Ryan. Thank you. Dr. Singh. Saw you. Yep. Yes, here. Dr. Ting. Dr. Zazo is here. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need 5 voting members to have a quorum. We have 5 positions present for a quorum. So we have enough to hold the meeting. So with that, we're going to continue with approval of last meeting's minutes and attendance as mailed out. Any corrections or changes? Okay, anybody want to approve it? Dazo? Okay, and then correspondence coming in. We have a bunch of New York State Compliance Bureau more than hand slaps. I'm just going to read them out loud for the minutes. EMT Tejas Betch, 426-343 from Albany, revoked effective 10/16/23 for violation of 10 NYCRR Part 800.16A5. EMT Stephen J. Rivera from Carmel, New York, number 427-041, suspended for 1 year effective 10/17/23. Suspension was stayed. Placed on probation for 3 years effective 10/17/23. Assessed a civil penalty of $1,000 for violation of 10 NYCRR Part 800.3 AM. EMT Catherine Seipel, Yorktown Heights, 447-565, suspended for 1 year effective 11/1/23, stayed pending no further violations for 3 years. assessed a civil penalty of $1,000 for violations of 10 NYCRR Part 800.3 AL, 800.3 AM, 800.15 AL, 800.15 A2, 800.16 A1, 800.16 A2, and 800.16 A3. EMT Joseph George from Somerton, South Carolina, 503074 revoked effective 10/2023, assessed a civil penalty of $500 for violations of 10 NYCRR Part 800.16 A7. EMT Christopher Langevin, New Milford, Connecticut, 153229, suspended for 1 year effective 11/8/23, stayed pending no further violations for a period of 3 years, assessed a civil penalty of $1,000 for violation of 10 NYCRR Part 800.3 AL, 800.3 AM, 800.15 A1, 800.15 A2, and 800.16 A3. The town of Hempstead has made, those are all the State Compliance Bureau. In addition, the state has said the town of Hempstead has made the decision to surrender their operating certificates for both agency codes 6268 and agency code 0840. We received incoming email from the Suffolk County REMAC regarding stroke. Received an incoming email from medical control. Thank you for the monthly hospital diversion report. There was an email received from an EMS agency provider regarding advice on the local shortage of amiodarone. It was reported back to that provider that the state has lidocaine as an alternative in the formulary, and that if they need to use lidocaine for a cardiac condition where amiodarone is listed in the protocol, they need to contact medical control for a discretionary order. Okay, it's not something that they could just switch because it's not in the protocol for that condition. So if you need lidocaine for a cardiac arrhythmia where it's indicated, you must contact medical control. That letter was sent back out to that provider. And I think it was posted in the weekly coordinator minutes. We received an incoming email from the Albertson Fire Department for BLS CPAP for the EMT level. And I have to tell you, I was quite impressed with their application. It's like 500 pages. I think I don't broke my printer. It was great, very thorough. So thank you for that. We received I received this morning an incoming phone call, a resignation from this committee after years of participation, Dr. David Ng. I provided recognized our gratitude to him for his length of service and duration of membership. And I received a text message just prior to this meeting from Dr. Sal Pardo, also resigning. And both doctors were reminded that their voices were still welcome and that we appreciate all the work that they did. A letter was sent back out, outgoing email to the Suffolk County Medical Director regarding stroke transports and all the work that we've done here in Nassau County, the presentations that were done at our meetings regarding stroke diversions. So that's correspondence. Let's see. For reports, mine is brief. We had a regional agency medical director and agency manager meeting. There were over 100 people on the meeting. It was fantastic. A lot of questions about a lot of different things. And there were a lot of questions afterwards that were picked up. We did a lot of clarifying on what eBridge actually is. So it was very, very productive. If you weren't able to make that meeting, please ask your colleagues what it was about, or if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Don, Chuck, or myself. Let's moving on. Again, your participation in the committee, the subcommittees is always welcome and appreciated. So thank you. eBridge will have a report that seems to people who are using it well. People who are not using it are still sticking their heels in the sand and digging in, trying to say we don't need to. So it's not. Sorry about that. getting family text messages. So let's see, if you could just encourage the providers to please use it because it is regional requirement. And again, flu is epidemic now, pandemic. So if you're not vaccinated, please remind your providers to wear a mask, just for their own protection. And if they're not vaccinated, they may be asked to wear a mask in the hospital. And that's just something that is happening from the state level. Policy development. So thank you to Dr. Bramante, but I'm sure he could use some help. So please reach out to him. REMAC membership, we're counting the membership. We sent out the cumulative attendance. Letters will be going out in either this month or the beginning of next month regarding your desire to continue as a member, especially if you hit the caution for the voting members. We've had 2 members resign, which means there's 2 seats open for voting. We already have two requests for membership. So we can keep the membership fresh. If you want to participate, that's great. If you don't want to participate, please step down. Let's see. Wall times, ER wall times are sort of trending in a steady state, which is great. You guys, the staff that's managing the emergency departments are doing a fantastic job keeping the ambulances moving. So thank you. If the EMS agencies notice any particular outliers, please let us know so we can address it with the ERs immediately. That would be with our ER representative, Dana Portapasso, who had a conflicting meeting and she wasn't able to make it to this one. All right, moving on. So CMAC, there was the New York State CMAC and medical standards meeting were canceled due to a lack of a quorum. In December, the meeting was last week. That's the reason why this meeting was pushed ahead or pushed back another week. The SEMSCO did have a meeting, and I'll give that out under Don Hudson's report. Please watch online for the SEMSCO report as well. There's also a New York State CMAC subcommittee that's subcommittee with the CMAC and the SEMSCO regarding credentialing. So there's a whole issue throughout the state about who can credential and then decredential somebody. They're looking at the medical legal, or the legal aspects of it, the civil aspects of it, the Bureau of, I forget what it's called, but the lawyers that are involved with the Department of Health, they're opining on it, and we're waiting for an official statement back. And this region has a particularly big section of representation on that committee. It's chaired by Dr. Paul Barber from New York City. So he actually chairs their credentialing committee in the city REMAC. So any questions regarding CMAC or SEMSCO? Or SEMSCO, I should say. All right, QA/QI, Dr. Zazzo.
Hello, everybody. A couple of things. Just to go over some trends, documentation. Please go over with your agencies, or if you have spelling on EPCRs, make sure your spelling and grammar is at least somewhat in English, because we're having a lot of problems with that. And then this, again, these are legal documents, and we like to try and have these things look semi-organized. STEMI transports have been actually increasing and doing well because of the increase in STEMI centers, so we see our times are down there. Stroke, just the SLAMs, they may have to be manually entered because of the EPCRs. Cardiac arrests, we're seeing a decrease in futile transports, which is very good. Again, reiterate with your agencies that somebody who's biologically dead, we have to be worked on the scene, should not be transported. There'll always be exceptions to that, and when in doubt, full medical control for advice on that. We don't want to have fights on the scene. Opioid overdoses, we see less Narcan, not in the overall use of it, but the overall dosages of it decreasing, which is appropriate. The last thing we want is an irate person in withdrawal vomiting at you. It's just to get their breathing improved and ventilation. So reiterate again that to the members that we're trying to support the airway. What I would like to just bring briefly is, hopefully in the new year, I want to start a new QA/QI protocol or program where we're going to start reviewing all cardiac arrests in the county. That's done already in Suffolk County. It's quite effective. I'd like to start doing that here. So the idea will be any agency with a cardiac arrest, we're going to review, one, to look at fetal transport, two, to make sure that they're in protocol. And I think that's an easy way to start so we can get in line with CARES. I think that would be a good first step. And then eventually we can look at other programs, trauma, so on and so forth. So I think that's the one initiative I really want to start on that for the year. And then we also have now QAQI. We have several new members on the committee, so we'll be able to, to get things done a little faster. Questions? That's good. Much.
Okay. RSI, airway, all things of the respiratory kind, Dr. Newberg, from the shoulders up.
Hi, everybody. All right. Two things. We had an RSI meeting prior to this, went really well. Again, I'm really appreciating everyone that's been participating and the support. It's been really beneficial, and it's helping us push medicine forward in the county, which is what we all want. So just highlights on the RSI committee meeting. We welcomed a new member, Dr. Silvers, where Glencoe VMS Medical Director. He joined the committee. And we welcome him on board. Two things that were the major developments from this morning. The first is that, and I have to bring this to new business, Glencoe VMS was approved by a committee to be an RSI agency. They had one paramedic application that has to meet one or two more requirements, so we are holding that until the next meeting. And we're going to assist that medic in getting the requirements that are necessary, so that person meets the requirements. And then for New Hyde Park, which we approved at the previous meeting, we have one medic that we just approved from the committee. That's Scott Pino, and so that'll come as a second motion in the new business to be approved by the full body. With that means that after 3 years, we now have our active RSI in Nassau County, albeit with one medic and one agency, but that is a huge step, and we appreciate. And honestly, this is good because the main limiting factor at this point is getting the proper difficult airway training and the hands-on training. And we talked in the committee, and we're going to work with the Fire Police Academy and with Dr. Kuta and stuff to get our own basically our own class in Nassau County also, so that way we are helping drive this forward, because that's the limit that most of the medics are having. And so we're going to work to develop that based on the Suffolk County class and our own experiences. So hopefully we'll develop that in the new year, and that'll help us get more medics approved in 2024. But once we get that voted on new business, we'll have made it over the finish line after a very extensive 3-year process, and it's much appreciated. It's very exciting. The other thing is for credentialing, we're going to coordinate with Fire Police Academy and Medical Control just to make sure that when we credential medics, they're aware of who we approved. And reciprocity had come up with Suffolk County. I'm also on visit Suffolk REMAC last month, and basically what we're doing, if there are medics that are cleared in Suffolk, is we're getting a letter from the Suffolk Regional Medical Director and their agency medical director, bringing it to our committee, and then considering that as part of their process. But that way that gives us the link. So it's not an automatic reciprocity, but certainly we're coordinating and working with our colleagues to the east, and that's working really well. And that's from the beginning, they've been very helpful with giving us tips and sharing their experiences. So that's been very helpful. So that's where we are. Our RSI meetings will be from now on the hour prior to this meeting, so that way we'll be meeting bi-monthly. And we're going to develop the training requirements over the next couple months when we get that done. For iGel, 18 agencies in the county are now on board with iGel. We've trained probably, let's say, 150, 200 people altogether from those agencies. Okay. No uses that we're aware of yet. Probably that's because we have a lot of ALS, and this is a BLS cardiac arrest, and most cardiac arrests get ALS in our county. But nonetheless, just the fact that we use that. We used our resources to get that many people trained is very good, and having them in the pilot is good. It proves part of the pilot was proving that the education of the BLS providers would be something that's possible, and we've shown that it's very easy and very reasonable to educate people in that and a new skill, and it's gone well. So we'll continue monitoring that. I think that pilot goes for another year or so in coordination with Hudson Valley. So if any other agencies want to get on board for either RSI or iGel, just reach out to me or to Don Hudson, and he'll send it to me, and then we'll work on that.
Dave, just send me a list of all the agencies so I can just check it against my list.
Yeah, certainly will. Any questions from anybody? Very exciting stuff. We appreciate the support from everybody.
right, thank you. Any questions for Dr. Newberg? Yeah, great job, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Very exciting. A lot
Dr.
of
Ryan,
people.
anything under protocols?
So nothing from the National Protocol Committee, but I do have some updates from Suffolk, which is somewhat related to our protocols.
Okay.
First of all, I'd say thanks to the letter that you sent out on behalf of the committee. That was a big help.
Sure.
I'm not sure everybody's aware, but Suffolk was trying to do a stroke diversion protocol for LVO or strokes they thought were LVOs. Since the last time we presented the data, a couple new studies have come out. One showing how hard it is to differentiate LVOs from non-LVOs and even strokes from non-strokes. So we presented that data to them. And there was another study called the RACE-CAT study, which was a randomized controlled study, which there has not been to date, which showed stroke diversion in a randomized controlled study did not make a difference to strokes, to ischemic strokes. However, the cohort of patients who had bleeds, which were not really included in most analysis, did much, much worse if they had delay in diversion. So that kind of confirms what we've been doing and not diverting at this point seems to be correct based on the current data. So when we have another issue for the protocol committee, or if we want to bring that data here, we can discuss the protocol or the next REMAC or whatever you like. But right now, I don't have it on the agenda for protocol here. But Suffolk County voted down and tabled that for at least a year.
Okay, fantastic. Do you have the name of that study?
The second one is RACE-CAT. That was the randomized control study, RACECAT.
Okay,
The other was kind of a long.
that's okay. The race cap
like
one is
the-
fine.
The RACE-CAT is that stuff. Yeah.
All right, that was great. So glad to know that what we're doing is still on the cusp of science and good medicine. Thank you very much. And that's all because of all the work that you did. So thank
Oh, thanks.
you. With regards to credentialing, remember it's the beginning of the year, starting next month. We're going to need every agency's medical director to sign that affiliation form. Your agency has to have a valid medical director in order to provide advanced life support care, or to even have an AED on your ambulance, albuterol, oxygen, those are all medications. So please make sure that the agencies that you're affiliated with have those medical director forms. That's regional policy. It's been regional policy now for almost 10 years. So that's the only thing under credentials. See, any questions about credentialing? Okay, policy, Dr. Bramante.
So basically, in policy, the first one is the transport positions policy that appears to never want to get finalized every time we come close. So there's another change to it, so I think it's going to be sent out to this group for approval today, but just received some additional comment from Don Simpson for the past couple of days. So I was hoping to speak with him today, but I'll reach out to him after this and hopefully get it sent out to the group for approval the next meeting once that language is corrected. Then we additionally sent out some additions to potentially reopen the bridge policy to add some clarification and some bullet points we would use for the medic safety. Rather than let's go through the whole policy.
Okay, thank you. Looking forward to the work. Any questions on policy? With lines, great. RTAC, so there's been a change in RTAC leadership. That's Regional Trauma Committee. Emery Glazer stepped down from her position as the regional chair, and there's nobody to fill her place yet. We're waiting to hear back. So Don Hudson and Chairman Mackey have been in touch with people. So as soon as we get a representative, we'll get a report. Communications, Dr. Joshua.
So I'm going to give most of my report on the unfinished business for e-bridge update.
Great.
But the one thing I would ask, maybe I could tap on to Dr. Zazzo and his team for quality. As we get more information and utilization with the e-bridge, it's really important to study what we're doing, make sure we're doing it well. And actually, it's pretty interesting information that's going to come out from the e-bridge. So we want to work collaboratively to get that information. And for the body here, please think about what it is that we should be looking at, like what is relevant to help you get your job done every day. So there's a lot of information that comes out of a software program like that. It's not just a matter of communicating in a better, more effective way. It's really about studying what we're doing and how we can be better. So think about it and bring it back to us and what we get to submit. So that's it for questions.
All right. Nassau EMS redesign tag, we already know the answer to that thing, no change. right?
The wheel spinning from
Yes,
Windows.
yes. Okay, Remsco, Chairman Mackey.
Thank you, Dr. Cooley. Just a few things, just to tag off some of the things. As far as the credentialing, re-credentialing, we've noticed that coming out of the 2-year pause, a lot of the ALS technicians and stuff have been restarting with the state, but once again failing to research and credential with the council of the county. We sent out approximately 200 emails to various ALS providers and stuff here. Once again, and we asked that the agency managers and stuff, check their rosters and make sure that the people are credentialing after they do their research on the state level. The EPCR transition, NEMSIS 3.4 is going to be going to 3.5 beginning in January. I believe it has to be completed by July of 2024. As you had mentioned, the EMS surveys and the medical director forms were sent out to all agency managers. We had 100% compliance and stuff last year. They're due back by January 31st.
It was
So
sent
please make sure that they are emailed back into the council email address. We've had a lot of moving parts. The committees and stuff have been meeting regularly. Disaster preparedness, communications, as well as training and ed. Been working with the MCI plan to develop a training curriculum for all agencies, fire, police, VACs, hospital-based, et cetera. We hope to have a syllabus up and running by the beginning of the year, and then once again branch off that to the various agencies to develop those training platforms for train the trainer training to get that out there. The only other thing, once again, if you would, we ask all agency managers to monitor the transmission of those EPCRs. As Dr. Zazzo mentioned, we're getting a lot of phone calls and stuff from hospitals regarding acute cases and stuff, STEMIs, CVAs, especially traumas with the ACS, requesting to know where the EPCRs and stuff are so they can put them in with their records. So please, all agency managers should be checking that and looking at the QA/QI for those. And the last thing is just the ambulance labeling has come up. It's been a couple of agencies out there that have been stopped and requested. We've had a lot of inquiries about transfer of authorities within agencies from department to districts. And with that, once again, the responsibility of changing the labeling on the ambulances and stuff has become something that's come to the forefront for us. So once again, if you're in that situation, we have 2 or 3 coming up in the next few months, we anticipate. Systems has been working with that, and hopefully we can mitigate those problems. And that's pretty much all I have.
Any questions for the chairman? All right. So the county fire coordinator, EMS coordinator, sorry. Different meeting. So Don Hudson sent an email. He apologizes. He's at the trauma symposium that I guess the other half of the membership is at. And so he sends his apologies. He said that Scott's here helping facilitate the meeting, so thank you. He mentioned that his contact with the RTAC and work to begin introductions and develop a working relationship with the new RTAC leadership. He's been working with MedCom and eBridge on the trauma policy, which will be, I guess I can mention it here.
Yeah.
So basically, you may notice eBridge for the providers that use it. A couple of changes. One, when you select trauma, if you select the red, like we're using the ACS red or yellow box. If you select red, you're going to get a pop-up that says what that criteria is, and you have to click OK before you can continue, because we want to make sure you're selecting the right trauma criteria, because the designation that you select precipitates a downstream cascade of activation of a trauma team, which in and of itself is an expensive venture for the hospital. So when you select that, you're actually costing the hospital a lot of money. So please be mindful of that. Not that you shouldn't do it, because there is an expected number of false activations that should occur. But what this does is it provides you a reminder saying, does this patient really meet this criteria? So it's a brief pause. So please look at the eBridge screens and make sure that you've updated them. The EMTCC has been a big a topic of discussion at the state level. And that they're looking to sunset it sooner than later. And the reason why they're looking to sunset it is because they've been looking at the number of participants taking the bridge program. And it started off, the number of students in the bridge program was probably in the high 20s to 30s. It's now in the single digits. And the largest number of CCs that exist in the state are here on the island. So it would affect us the most. And right now, with most of the protocols, the EMTCC is really trained up to the AMT level anyway. So what you need to do is either step up or step back as a CC. The CCs, they can't do RSI, they can't use ketamine, they can't do a lot of things. So if they become at least paramedics, they could use medications, but they'll still not be able to RSI. So the state is looking to move up the sunsetting date. It was going to be 2027 is the date.
July 2027.
Yeah, is the date that they're it's going to go by. Let's
They're
see.
moving it up to when?
I'm sorry? July 2027 is when it's. That's when,
2026.
if you're not a paramedic and you're a CC, your card will just be a EMT at that point. If Don said anybody wants to discuss or get more information or training about eBridge, please contact him. Let's see, I mentioned this. Yes, July 1st, 2027. All EPCR platforms in use in New York State shall reflect previously certified EMTCCs by their new level at 000 hours on July 1st, 2027. So that basically you have to make sure in that year, if you have a CC in your agency, that on July 1st at midnight, they become recognized as AEMTs. Anybody from actually, is there any questions on Don's report? Okay. Anybody from the fire marshal's office? Okay. So unfinished business, eBridge updates.
I think you just gave it and under Don's report, pretty much just the enhancement for the eBridge, just look out for it, notify your agencies that's there. It's really to help augment what the application can do. So you don't have to remember all the ACS trauma criteria. There will be a pop-up on top and it'll just remind you. So when you're going through that programming, it's a bit more accurate knowledge. And for the providers, when they go into the hospital and someone says, well, why did you activate this? Well, you have the criteria right there. So helpful for everyone.
Right. Any other unfinished business? Yes.
Well, the hospital's on the same page. I know they're supposed to be following the same criteria, but I know if I go to Winthrop and I ask for a trauma team, their criteria is different than North Shore Manhattan. So I understand you have that box, but if they're using different metrics to, qualify the trauma team, what's going on?
Sure, back up. So I'll start and then I'll let the expert finish. So yeah, every organization probably has their own internal policy and procedure and sort of data that they're using to drive their trauma activations. The out of hospital is based on the very firm criteria that the ACS has sort of given us, the PHTLS literature has provided us. In hospital, they can use a variant of that as to when they'll call, and their policies may all be different. So whether it's NYU or whether it's Catholic Health System or whether it's Mount Sinai or Northwell, they all may have a little bit of a different twist to it. If you're finding on the provider side, the pre-hospital side, that you're met with resistance or, somehow someone's not meeting the need that you think your patient needs, then that's something you need to bring back here.
And bring it back timely.
Yeah, and that's something we can help. But essentially your question is a good one. Why doesn't everyone operate the same way? Well, everyone has a different trauma director. Everyone has a different trauma program. They too are all held to a very high standard to get credentialed as a trauma center. That's all done through the ACS, but what they do internally may look and feel a little different.
No, that's basically it. So the pre-hospital providers have to stick to the protocols and the training. And if you think it's a trauma and it meets trauma criteria, activate it. What the hospital does with that information is on them. And if they're not complying, if they're not meeting you with a trauma team over and over again, or even just that one time, it could have just been a one-off. Just let us know anyway. We can follow up with that, with the trauma service at that facility. And maybe the trauma team was off dealing with another trauma. Maybe they didn't get your notification, whatever it is, we can get back to you and let you know.
And let me just add to that, I think it's a great point. The thing that the organization, at the organizational level, that they can't tolerate, we have some high-level organizational individuals in this room, is not getting recertified by the ACS. And the thing that gets flagged the most is when they don't initiate a trauma. So it's not, over triaging, it's under triaging that they get the dings for. So, it's incumbent upon them to make sure that they're recognizing trauma at all levels, not to miss trauma, because missing trauma is where they get hurt when it comes to recertification. So again, if you're met with some resistance, that's something that this body needs to know about. Yep.
Well, honestly, what I do now is even, I transport mostly to North Shore Manhasset, depending on who's on staff that day. It may be that same patient, may be a trauma, may not be. So what I do is I make my notification. I tell them what I have, unless it's blatantly obvious. I said, I ask medical control, you let me know what they want to do. And that's what I started doing, because it was just too much inconsistency.
Duly noted. I think, that's something that we need to take up. It should not be provider dependent. I think that's what I heard you say, and that certainly shouldn't be the case. There may be some nuance, site dependent, but some other people in the room have a lot of experience around trauma. Any other leadership comments from the REMAC members?
I think some of it might have to do with staffing also. If you're I've worked in a lot of different institutions on my own, and if you have a residency program, the response might be that you have emergency medicine residents, initial resuscitation in some places, and you call trauma once the patient is there, and you may not see them, but they might show up later. Whereas other places, if you don't have, they might just have, so it might be, I guess institutionally dependent on the availability of resources.
And again, that's why I said I let them know what I have. That communication with medical control via the radio, they can come back and tell me. It's a lot easier than you think.
And so, Dr. Boo, do you want to comment?
Yeah. It shouldn't be provided. And, you said it's correct. I'd rather you guys call more traumas than less. Because I don't mind overcalling. It's undercalling that's the problem. Basic regulars and that. So you can let us know if there's a trauma. And we'll, based on the information that we have, we'll activate the system. We have different levels. We have alerts, we have one, we have two, so that's different for every institution. You always have, as long as you get a phone call, yes, activate.
And what we should do is we should have a conversation with other people to find out what you're learning so that we can help facilitate a dialogue. So if you have to scale it up or down based upon an individual provider, that's really not appropriate. So, yeah.
So I think
Want to take it?
Good.
Dr. Kugler partially answered this, but I have had much the similar experience where there's no activation until after you get into triage. And what we do in training is we train EMTs and paramedics to make that notification so the hospital has some time to prepare. If they constantly get to hospital X, and one of the hospitals I know for sure is noted for doing it more than others, if nobody's activated, what's the sense? They don't even come in. There's other hospitals that every time you go in there, they have a full team waiting for it. Definitely knew that was that hospital.
So
They're always waiting for it.
But-
It doesn't cost me any more money. Activate or don't activate. because I'm paying, so I'm paying for the CAT scanner, I'm paying for the staff, they're in-house. Everybody's in-house. Actually, it makes me more money than the active.
Right, so-
The reimbursement's better.
So then, again, it's the same answer. Use the eBridge tool to make the notification. If the hospital's not receiving your trauma properly, let the region know. If you don't use the eBridge tool, then we can't track it. Okay, yeah, Chairman Mackey.
No, I just wanted to, I believe we brought this up, one of the last meetings, is the eBridge allows us to once again be able to access and document that information on multiple different platforms.
Correct.
Like the hospital, our own personal server, once again, through medical control. And as we move into 2024, as the state's going to start to push quality metrics and various things, we're going to have to be able to track these things. And the way to be able to track it is through the eBridge, which is very difficult when you're using radio transmissions and stuff with that. I'm not saying that the radio is obsolete, but we left it in place because it is, another way for us to be able to communicate. But I think it's important that we, as we move forward, that we continue to use it, because once again, it's going to make it easier for quality improvement, quality assurance to be able to track these and be able to find out where the discrepancies and stuff are within that server on multiple different layers.
Go ahead. It's yours now.
Yeah, I just say, when we collecting data, it might be worthwhile getting a sense of the activation. Someone mentioned before about 1, 2, and 3. So if someone comes in with trauma transfer criteria that's reasonably stable, a level 3 activation will look very different to the provider than a level 1 activation with somebody's got 5 gunshots, needs to be intubated, needs 2 chest tubes right away. In one, the trauma, the surgeons might be there. In the other circumstance, just the ED piece of trauma team might be there. And it will look different to the provider. So maybe if we're going to start tracking data, we should track it by the 3 categories.
Well, it starts with data input, so that's why the eBridge tool needs to be used.
Exactly. I'm just saying, if we're going forward.
We just had that discussion. He just put it on this list for the quality side. It's exactly one of the data elements we were just talking about before that will help us as a region to get better.
See the activation, see who downgrades, chronically downgrades or chronically, the upgrades are not the issue, so.
Like the Super Bowl level 3 activation, that means I'm going to see the patient with consult trauma. We should call a level 1 activation, trauma team.
Right, should be there.
There should be certain
Receive,
One hospital in particular that was mentioned, their trauma criteria is definitely an in-house, more specific one. And it has changed. It's definitely a very fluid document, but it may be a good idea that their criteria is distributed to medical control and REMAC. So that way that can be the guided questions when medical control comes back on a radio.
The trauma criteria is trauma criteria. It's based on what New York State is. It's got what the hospital does.
Sure.
Has nothing to do with what you do in the field.
Sure, I'm just.
So I think that sharing that information is going to muddy a picture that's already a little bit blurry. You need to focus on the pre-hospital criteria for trauma, meets trauma criteria, hit the red button, trauma, yellow or red box. Okay, here's the demographics, 30 seconds into the eBridge transmission, and then transport to that facility. That's it, then you're done. You've made your trauma notification. If the hospital wants to reach back and say, hey, do you have a photograph? Do you have any patient demographics so we can make a chart prior to your arrival, or get an updated set of vitals? That's what eBridge allows two-way communication for. But don't use what a hospital does to determine what you're going to do in the field. It's different. And so I appreciate that you want to know what the hospital's doing, but it doesn't matter.
I'm just thinking in terms of specific keywords.
It doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter. Just look at the trauma criteria. If they meet trauma criteria, they're a trauma, push the button. And if you're not sure, you can always make it a trauma and the hospital can downgrade it. Like Dr. Booten said, he's already paid for the staff. They're already in-house. Just activate it. And when you get there, the trauma team goes, what's this all about? The person sitting up and talking and playing on their iPhone. You can say, well, they met trauma criteria, so I hit the button.
Yeah, let me just comment. I think your intention is awesome, right? You want to find alignment with the institution so that you can help them sort of streamline what they're doing. But as a pre-hospital provider, you need to be agnostic to what's going on in each individual institution. It's too complex. And you're gonna be chasing it, to your point, you said it right up front, they continually change it. So every week, you're gonna make sure that all of your pre-hospital providers know what they're changed to. It's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to take the best care of the patient possible, and that's why the criteria is set.
You look at the numbers and I go, you know what, I need my traumas. So what was a trauma today, 6 months ago was not a trauma. We need to make those numbers when they're going to go.
And I think the problem that Jim mentioned for is important thing. I'm not currently at a trauma center, but I work at 3 different trauma centers on the island. And it's really resource dependent. And those resources in the hospital change year to year, or even sometimes month to month. So on the emergency medicine side, a lot of times it's the physician there, by your report, by what you see when you come in, is making a determination. Obviously, certain things are obvious. Trauma teams should be at the bedside when you get there. Other things are raised out of it. That's why different hospitals, really depending on their resources, have different activation levels outside of the national guidelines.
Yeah, my understanding, the ACS guideline is what, 15 minutes for a trauma surgeon to be present. So after the patient arrives, so you may not actually see the trauma surgeon arrive. The other thing is I work in a lot of places with EM residencies, and we have an EM residency. The EM residents want the intubation in chest tubes, so they'll pull trauma a few minutes later, so they get the initial procedures because they need to be confident those too. So what you see might vary a lot depending on how we staffed both with attendings and educational residents.
On the pre-hospital side, you want it to be muscle memory, right? It's a yellow, is a red, and that's it. You make the criteria, get them in, let the hospital then decide where they want to go, but we don't want to confuse the field techs, trying to constantly sort out the different criteria that hospital X over Y may use. Muscle memory, this is what it is, boom, and then go from there.
Just one last, and I think you're right. The most important thing for us as pre-hospital is making sure that we're assessing the patient appropriately, getting to the appropriate trauma center. And if there is an issue, once again, send us, as we said on the virtual meeting, send us an email if you have an issue and stuff. Send it to the council, and once again, it'll give us a time frame. Once again, we'll be able to research it, and we'll be able to look back and see if there's trends or other things that are going on. Once again, one-stop shopping, put it there. We access it every day, and once again, we can identify the pools, and we can go from there. But the most important thing is the hospital's going to do what they need to do, and it's on them when they, once again, if they drop the ball, they're going to have to answer for it with ACS. For us, once again, the most important thing is getting them assessed appropriately and getting those traumas to the proper hospital for that care. And if there's an issue and stuff, that, like I said, send an email to Nassau REMAC.
I think
And
there
we'll
was
take care of it.
a final comment. Hey, you open the dialogue, and we'll give you the final comment to close it.
Yeah, I just had a question. So Chuck mentioned appropriate trauma center. So in Suffolk County, we follow the trauma box criteria. Here in Nassau County, it's a trauma to trauma. So you could be taking technically a level 1 to a level 2. Is there a plan in the future with eBridge and collecting this data that we will soon be directing these traumas based on their level to the appropriate trauma center?
I think that's a good thing to look at. Right now, there's been no discussion about that. And I think the data doesn't necessarily pan out to suggest that one is actually better than the other. But be that as it may, I think it's a good point. Can we use data to drive what we do in this county more efficiently, right? Do we get people to the better place in a better period of time using that data? It's a good thing to think about.
Like for peds, for peds, it's, you either go to Queens or you go to Suffolk. We don't have one. That has to change, so it's.
But there is a difference between North State University Hospital and South Nassau. Or the same.
I thought the only, and I looked this up, my recollection, I looked this a couple of years ago. I thought the only guideline in ACS was we bypass a level 3. But you wouldn't bypass a level 2 to go to a 1 necessarily. A 3 might be bypassed for severe trauma. The level 2 and 1 resources are fairly.
You're correct, though.
Yeah.
You're correct.
The differentiator in the ACS has to do a lot more with research than it does with application. It's harder to get at level 1. You need to be more robust in what you're doing with research. It has nothing to do with your blood bank, has nothing to do with your surgical OR capabilities, 0.
It's mostly the level 2 and the level 3 where.
Well, that should,
Right,
but that
that's
shouldn't really
We
be,
don't have any level threes on that
we're
account.
not a free
Was-
region.
Well, down to the legal point, on the level 3 conversation with E-Bridge, it has become a touch difficult with Huntington Hospital. Because that is a level 3.
Oh, Huntington.
Yes, and there are several agencies that do go there, and we've had to like catch them. You know, be like, just, hey, look, maybe they should come to the medical center. Or something like that.
Who floats from Nassau to Huntington?
Oyster Bay, East Norwich, Syosset, some of the Nassau County trucks, they do go up there. You'd be surprised, they get a fair amount from us. It's actually been a resource because they're also PCI center, which is great. But they're a level 3 trauma center, so sometimes we'll call up and say, hey, look, we have this, can you handle it? And most of the time the answer is yes, but just so you know, you might want to take a look at it.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Thank you. That was a great discussion. Hopefully we clarified a bunch of information. And any further unfinished business? Wonderful. So moving on to new business, the first portion of the new business is election of officers for the 2024-2025 commitment. So that we've created the ballot, the last meeting, the ballot. I guess we'll leave the secretary to the ballot.
For the 2024 to 2025 REMAC ballot, position of chairman, Dr. David S. Kugler, vice chairman Joshua Kugler, secretary.
Okay, since the ballot nominations were closed at the last meeting, I'd like a motion from the floor to just have the secretary cast one ballot for the committee. Dr. Newberg, Dr. Ryan, okay, so you're gonna mark up the ballot, and that'll be that. I need a motion from the floor to approve Albertson's BLS CPAP application, their treatise novel that they sent. It seems to be fully complete, including dates of birth and social security number. No, okay, any questions on the motion? Anybody against? Anybody abstain? Okay. All right, and then just for this agency's information, we're gonna have the program agency send out a letter to all the voting members whose membership has been less than 50%. That was indicated in the summative attendance, asking your desire to remain as a voting member of the committee. Just as a reminder, the bylaws state if you miss 2 meetings in a row, theoretically, you could be kicked off the committee. We haven't done that ever. We've looked at your annual attendance, and we've asked you if you wanted to stay on or not. We did have 2 resignations, which means it created another new business, which is there's 2 new positions open for voting membership for the 2024-2025. The first non-voting position is Dr. Caitlin Keenan, who had requested membership way back when. Are you still interested in the position? Yeah, okay, so Dr. Keenan, I need a motion to make Dr. Kugler, Dr. Zazo. Okay, anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? So I'm just assuming everybody's in favor then. So unanimous. Okay, and then the second open position, I was gonna, under new business, we have a letter from Dr. Silver. This pile of paperwork requesting membership in the committee. It was initially going to be a non-voting member. Dr. Silver is the medical director for the Glen Cove EMS. So Dr. Silver, you want to be made a voting member?
Sure.
Okay, you guys know that there's like a membership commitment, right? You have to come to meetings. Okay, great. So I just need a motion to accept Dr. Silver. Josh? Okay,
All those in favor?
thank you.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes.
Okay, thank you. And then, election of officers, determination. Oh, the next one is the next February meeting occurs on February 7th, 2024. Occurs at the next CMAC meeting. I'm gonna just make an announcement that this meeting will be pushed to, again, 1 week later to February 14th. So, you know, either that or you have to run the meeting.
February 14th it is.
Okay. Got it. All right, so just for your information,
Y'all
we'll
work together. We'll do it now.
and
Everyone bring your.
yeah, I want flowers.
We have to bring the candy hearts.
Yes,
Yes.
and then we have the new business from the Airway Committee.
Yes, approval for Glencoe VMS to be an agency and Scott Pino to be a.
Someone,
Okay, any,
right, so coming as a second.
Yeah,
it's coming as a seconded motion. So anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Okay, so congratulations, Scott.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Glencoe.
Yes, and thank you, everybody, for all the
Yeah.
support, because we are now RSI active in that.
Yeah, we are now in Nassau County. Yes, Dr. Vermont.
Yeah, opposition to make the 31st of January instead.
January 30. You know what? I'll send it out by email just because I have to check my calendar. But I, you know, that's a possibility as well. So thank you.
You love or not a fighter.
24th is a possibility for the meeting. Okay, thank you. And anything else for the meeting? So before we close out this year and this term, I want to say thank you to everybody. First for helping us through COVID and moving us forward into eBridge, and then moving us forward again to RSI, where this county is continuously growing and becoming, we're evolving as an EMS system. We're looking at crew force for ambulance for vehicle location and tracking, getting the closest ambulance that's appropriate to that call and as soon as possible so we can help our constituents. I think what we're doing, if people on the outside knew all the hard work that you guys were doing, they would be appreciative of the amount of lives that you've saved and the lives that you will save. So thank you all very much. I want to wish you all a very happy holiday season, happy, healthy new year. And please find some time to be with your families and take some time for yourself. Thank you all very much.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Yeah, so
Absolutely.